Whoa, hold on, father. What is the meaning of this?
Before I knew it, I raised my voice. In response, my father-in-law cheerfully said, "We hadn't shown our new home to relatives since we moved, so I invited them over." What? In our newlywed home, my in-laws have been staying for 3 months, and now my father-in-law has casually invited relatives over and is holding a noisy party. My mother-in-law was acting as if the house was hers, showing her relatives around the house. "This is absolutely too much, doing such things without asking me first." At my loud voice, the relatives turned their attention towards me, but my husband Aaron frowned and said, "What are you talking about? This is our house, isn't it? This is perfectly normal." I clenched my fists tightly. In our home, where we should have been enjoying our newlywed life, the in-laws behaving as if this place is theirs, and my husband who sees this as normal. I can't forgive them any longer. I could feel a string inside me snap. "I can't take it anymore. Leave right now." The room falls silent at my outcry. However, Aaron begins yelling at me with an angry voice. "What are you saying? Asking my dad and mom to leave? If you have a problem with this, you can leave." With those words, I could feel my love for him cooling rapidly. "Have you forgotten?" "Huh?" As I said that with a stern face, Aaron began to look perplexed. "My name is Julia. I'm 28 years old, dating Aaron, who is 2 years older than me. I met Aaron at the company where we work. He's a bit assertive at times, but his kind, masculine, and reliable nature drew me to him, and we started dating. And on this Christmas, which marks our second year of dating, Aaron booked a restaurant with a beautiful night view for us. Could this be? As I was thinking that, Aaron pulled out a sparkling ring and said, "Julia, will you marry me?" Overwhelmed with emotion, I replied with tears in my eyes, "I'm so happy, Aaron. Thank you."
As Aaron put the ring on my finger and I was gazing at it dreamily, Aaron began to speak.
"So I have a request. Would you quit your job once we get married? I was planning to continue working though." Seeing my confusion, Aaron said with a serious face, "I want my wife to stay at home. I'll work hard and provide for us. I want you to wait for me at home. That's always been my dream. It would be better even when we have kids, right?" "Well, if that's what you want, Aaron." Unable to refuse him, when put like that, I agreed to quit my job. "Thank you for understanding, Julia. Let's be happy from now on." Holding my hand and saying that, I nodded in agreement to Aaron. At that moment, I was filled with happiness, unaware of the turmoil that awaited in the life that followed. When I reported the marriage to my mother, she was overjoyed, jumping with happiness. I remember feeling glad to be able to make my mother, who had been down since losing my father last year, happy. "Julia, I'm sure your dad is also happy. Be happy." "Yes, Mom, thank you." "You're meeting Aaron's family next week, right? Make sure to greet them properly." "Yes, of course." The following week, I went to greet Aaron's family at their home, accompanied by Aaron. Aaron is an only child, forming a family of 3 with his would-be father-in-law and mother-in-law. They welcomed me very warmly. Well, we never imagined such a lovely lady would become Aaron's wife," Aaron's mom said with a squinting smile. "Aaron, as the head of the family, make sure to stand firm." "I got it, Dad." I felt certain that things would work out well with them. Embracing that belief, I quit my job shortly after and got married to Aaron. After the wedding, it was finally time to move into our new home. I, who had finished moving our things in first, was waiting for Aaron at the entrance of the apartment building. Suddenly, 2 large moving trucks stopped in front of me. "Aaron, did you have that much stuff?" However, it wasn't just Aaron who got out of the vehicles. Smiling, parents-in-law stood behind Aaron. "What? Did they come to help with the move? I didn't hear about this." I thought so and was about to greet them when my mother-in-law approached me, smiling broadly, and said, "Looking forward to living with you, Julia." "Living with? What do you mean?" Confused and bewildered, my mother-in-law spoke to Aaron. "Oh, Aaron, didn't you tell her?" "Oh, I forgot to mention it. The lease on my parents' apartment is ending, so we agreed to live together until they find a new place." Aaron said, as if it was no big deal, but it caught me completely off guard. What? Hold on a second, Aaron. Come on, Julia, let's try to get along. Ignoring my astonishment, my father-in-law walked past me into the house. Furthermore, the moving company staff, seemingly losing patience, asked, "Can we start bringing in the stuff now?" "We can't keep the movers waiting. Let them bring the stuff in for now." At Aaron's instruction, despite my dazed state, the movers began bringing in my in-laws' belongings swiftly. I thought I'd be able to enjoy newlywed life just with Aaron. From that day, an unexpected life of four, including my in-laws, began. Initially, they were somewhat distant and considerate towards me. However, within just 10 days, they became increasingly presumptuous. Being at home all day, they didn't lift a finger, leaving me to handle all the household chores for the four of us. While it was decided that I would be a full-time housewife, taking on chores for four adults turned out to be quite a laborious task. One day, about 2 weeks since we started living together, my father-in-law complained during dinner, "Julia, the food is too bland. I want something richer."
But father, you mentioned recently that your blood sugar level was high at the hospital and asked for lighter meals. That's why I followed healthy recipes.
Well, I don't care. Bland food is bland. If you think it's bland, how about preparing it yourself? I couldn't help but retort, feeling increasingly irritated. However, the one scolding me was Aaron. "How dare you speak back to my dad like that? Just cook as instructed. Apologize to him now." I thought Aaron would be on my side, but being told those words filled me with a sense of betrayal. Being demanded to apologize by Aaron, I reluctantly bowed my head to my father-in-law. "It's fine as long as you understand. Just understand." My father-in-law looked down at me with a satisfied expression.
Since then, not only did my father-in-law keep nitpicking about meals or bath temperatures, but my mother-in-law became even worse.
She not only entered my room without permission, but also started using my clothes and cosmetics without asking.
Mother, I have a right to privacy too. Please don't enter my room without permission.
Oh, come on, we're family. It shouldn't matter. Just because we're family, it's not right to use my things without asking, is it? Stop being so stingy. After all, these clothes and makeup were bought with Aaron's money, weren't they? You're acting like they are all yours. At that point, I had to complain to Aaron, but all he did was side with his mother. "You heard, Mom. You were able to be a housewife because of the money I earn." "What? I wanted to work, but I quit my job because you wanted me to become a housewife." "Don't give me lip when you're living off my dime." Overwhelmed with frustration, I shed tears alone in bed that night. Just then, I received a message from my mother asking, "Is your married life going well?" But I didn't want to worry her, so all I could reply was, "Everything is going smoothly." I kept telling myself this was just a temporary situation until the in-laws found a new house, but there was no sign of them planning to leave. When I asked them if they were looking for a new house, at first they were evasive, but eventually began to shout back at me, "Shut up, stop nagging us." It became clear they had no intention of leaving. This realization brought an overwhelming sense of despair. As we approached the 3rd month of living together, I found myself unable to sleep, losing appetite, and I had lost over 11 pounds since before the wedding. I am nearing my breaking point. I need to do something. One day, as I thought this, I returned home to find a heap of shoes at the entrance. Loud noises were coming from the living room. Rushing to find out what was happening, I discovered a grand party taking place. Almost 10 of Aaron's relatives, whom I met at the wedding, were enjoying a feast and drinks with my father-in-law.
"Excuse me? Father, what's going on here?"
As I inadvertently raised my voice, my father-in-law cheerfully responded, "We hadn't had a chance to show our new house to the relatives since we moved, so I invited them over." "What?" "Come on, Julia, prepare some more snacks." My father-in-law was making a loud ruckus, potentially disturbing the neighbors and hosting the party boisterously. My mother-in-law was proudly showing the relatives around the house, including my room and bedroom, unabashedly. As I stood in shock, Aaron came home and nonchalantly said, "Oh, this looks fun." Infuriated by his remark, I snapped at Aaron, "This is too much, doing this without even asking me." My shout drew the attention of the relatives, but Aaron frowned and replied, "What are you talking about? This is our house, isn't it? This is completely normal." I clenched my fist tightly. "I can't tolerate this anymore. The in-laws taking over my marital home for 3 months and acting like it's theirs, and my husband who sees nothing wrong with it. I can't stand it anymore. I felt the tension that had built up inside me snap. That's it! Leave right now! The room fell silent at my outcry. Then, my mother-in-law hurriedly intervened. Oh my, what is this bride saying? Then my father-in-law joined in. Yeah, Julia, it's disgraceful to raise your voice like that all of a sudden. Angered by their words, I turned to Aaron. Aaron, control your parents! This is too much! It's you who needs to control yourself! Aaron yelled back at me. Frozen in disbelief, I opened my eyes wide. How could you say they should leave? If you're unhappy, why don't you leave? Aaron shouted at me, his voice filled with anger. I felt his affection cooling rapidly. You have forgotten? Huh? As I spoke seriously, Aaron looked at me perplexed. I'm the owner of this house, you know. When my father passed away, all the savings were taken by my mother, and I had inherited this condominium unit. The one who suggested that we should live here after getting married, stating it would be a waste to leave it vacant, was Aaron. Maybe recalling that, Aaron's face turned increasingly red. However, he blurted out defiantly. So, what's your point? What right do you have to say anything, being just my wife? Then the in-laws seemed a bit panicked and started talking to Aaron. Oh, hold on, Aaron. Didn't you say you bought this place yourself? Yes, I had no idea it belonged to Julia. Then my husband declared confidently, Well, don't worry about what a mere wife says. After all, she lives on the money I earn. You two should stand your ground. At this, the in-law seemed to have a sudden realization. Yes, that's right. Just because she is the owner on paper doesn't mean she can actually do anything. Exactly. If you find it annoying, try kicking us out. Not that we'll leave. The relatives who had been invited to the gathering were watching this exchange in astonishment. Perhaps feeling uncomfortable, some people were trying to sneak away to get ready to leave. If that's your attitude, fine. I have my own plans. I said that and pulled out a pre-filled divorce paper from the living room drawer and thrust it towards Aaron. Please sign this. Then Aaron, though looking shocked for a moment, snorted with laughter and snatched the divorce paper. Oh sure, and how do you plan to live after divorcing? With no job and certainly not wealthy, being a single parent, you'll just be a laughing stock. Aaron taunted me. However, without saying anything, I took the divorce paper that Aaron had signed, packed my belongings and was about to leave the house. At the front door, Aaron said with a triumphant expression, Go cool off your head for a bit. If you apologize properly, I might let you back in. Ignoring his words, I hurriedly left through the front door. A month later, while having tea with my mother at my childhood home, I received a call from Aaron. When I went over upon his demand, Come home right now, there stood Aaron with his face turned beet red along with the in-laws. What is the meaning of this legal notice from the lawyer? Vacate or a lawsuit will be filed for the possession of the property. I responded with a straight face. What do you mean? It's weird for strangers to be squatting in my house, isn't it? Strangers? We're family. Hearing that, I chuckled and then said, We've been divorced for a while now, you know. Yes, right after receiving the divorce paper from Aaron, I had filed it with the city office. I had explained the situation to my mother and was staying at my childhood home. Then, Aaron, with a shocked expression, lunged at me verbally. You actually filed that divorce paper? How dare you divorce me without consent? Well, did you write the divorce paper just to threaten me? Thank you for it. I used it gladly. We are strangers now, after all. Now, the father-in-law and mother-in-law began berating me in unison. What do you think you're doing? How dare you, as a wife, act on your own? Yes, how audacious. Do you think you'll be forgiven? I looked at the two with a cool gaze. You hardly even work. How do you plan to pay for the attorney's fees? Is this certified mail just a bluff after all? Seriously. As Aaron continued to provoke me, someone spoke up to interrupt him. When a parent hears their daughter is being treated unfairly, they will do anything necessary. Entering was my biological mother.
Oh, Mother, how come?
Faced with the sudden appearance of my mother, Aaron started to panic. With the inheritance from your father, I do have a substantial amount of money at hand. I intended it to be my retirement fund, but I don't mind using it for the sake of my daughter. My mother sternly stated, and I addressed her. Mom, I'm sorry. I have secured a job now, so I will properly reimburse you for the attorney's fees later.
It's fine, dear. You just focus on yourself. I'm on your side.
Thank you. I teared up at my mother's reassuring words. My husband and his parents were staring at us, their faces a picture of shock. Turning to them, my mother spoke firmly. Now, shall I ask you to leave? I don't mind calling the police on charges of trespassing. Whether it was my mother's fierce demeanor or the mention of the police, Aaron stammered nervously. Calling the police is a bit much. Realizing the gravity of the situation, my in-laws began to panic. Do we really have to leave this place? Where are we supposed to live now? It was so comfortable living here. This is too much, Julia. At my mother-in-law's words, I sharply retorted, The ones being unreasonable here are you guys. If you don't leave within 3 days, I really will take this to court. Noticing my firm resolve, Aaron suddenly changed his tune. Julia, I'm so sorry for everything. I love you. Let's start over. As Aaron clung on to me with those words, I shook him off. It's too late for that, and of course I will be claiming separate compensation for emotional distress. Not compensation too. Leaving my despondent Aaron and flustered in-laws behind, my mother and I exited the place. 3 days later, when I visited the house in question, Aaron and his parents were nowhere to be found, as if they had fled in the night. After a while, one of the relatives who had attended the party that day called to apologize to me. I casually inquired about the whereabouts of the trio. Apparently, the homeless trio had hurriedly rented a rundown apartment.
Using this information to track down their address, I engaged a lawyer and demanded $13,600 in compensation from Aaron.
Facing the lawyer, my ex-husband seemed to lose the will to resist and agreed to pay the compensation promptly. Having exhausted their savings to me, Aaron and his parents were now working tirelessly to afford the rent, I heard. From their cramped apartment, loud arguments could be heard nightly, causing a nuisance in the neighborhood. As for me, though it was a shame, I decided to sell the reclaimed house. Since it held no fond memories, I felt little resistance to selling. Including the compensation, I had accumulated a substantial amount of money, allowing me to repay my mother for the legal fees and start renting a new apartment. Now I am enjoying a life unburdened by the past. Going forward, I intend to work hard and live my life to the fullest.